All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are you doing? Um, I am Is There No One Else? I'm bringing you a very quick video before I leave for the weekend. Wanted to discuss some things because they'll come out with another DLC or a combat balance update in a couple months. So I wanted to start a conversation, and I wanted to try and figure out how to do this. And um, I I've been hesitating to make this type of video because this opens a Pandora's box of people bitching about classes and people bitching about certain things. And in general, a lot of the things that I see when people talk on the forums or on Facebook pages, or even when I'm playing with new people, they talk about it from their point of view. I'm a Stamina Nightblade and Magic and DKs are OP because they do this, this, and this. They talk about it from one side, and that's fine. There are obviously fights out there where it is a pain in the ass to fight a certain build with your specific class, and I've talked about it quite a few times. And I can go into those more in detail later if you guys want to. If you guys have been watching my videos, you know some of the fights that I'm talking about. But I've always wanted to try and tackle this type of conversation because I do play all the classes. I do have my preferences. I do play some characters more than others, but I have experience playing all of them. And so I have experience as a Stamsork fighting all the classes. I have experience as a Warden fighting. Not only do I have experience as a Nightblade fighting a Magicka DK, I have experience as a Magicka DK fighting a Nightblade. And so, from my point of view, like I have both sides. And so it's kind of, I think in order to open these conversations, you need to, have people that have that type of knowledge, and they need to have these discussions. So, I wanted to try and do this, but I didn't want to have like a no, you're an idiot, you're retarded, that is a bad choice. These are just my opinion on what I think kind of needs to happen. But today, Gina Bruno came out with what they're looking at doing from what their combat team is looking at. And I think this is a good place to start, what they're looking at. I think we should discuss what they're looking at, and then we need to also, I'll provide my opinion on, what else I think needs to be addressed as well. Because at the end of the day, guys, like, I don't care if I go into open world PvP and kill 12 potatoes. That's not fun for me. I don't like just shitting on people because they're bad or because their class is bad. Although it's kind of cool and it's fun, what I have more fun doing is seeing somebody show up with a very unique build and they play in a unique way that's successful, and I had to figure out counters to fight it. And running across groups that are constructed in that way, and if you're playing with your group against theirs, something more in depth than just Destro bombing. We're going to drop in a gate and then we're going to hit them with 3 Destro ultis. Like, that works on everybody, and that's not really creative gameplay. Having that balance to where you give each class tools to bring to a fight to where they can do certain things, and if they play to their class's strengths, they can succeed, is I think the direction that this game should go. And when I talk about some of these things, it's just my experience, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just going to provide options. If you disagree, I have no problem with anybody disagreeing with what I'm saying, but when you disagree, provide a counter argument. Say, I don't think you're right with this because of this, this, and this reason. And we can have a discussion, and we could talk about it, we could try and figure out, what's better. Because I don't have all the answers. The devs don't have all the answers. No one person for balance has the answers. So that's going to be my long-winded point. Let's go into what they're talking about. We'll talk about this a little bit, and then I'm going to discuss a couple more things, and hopefully they eventually address those as well. So Gina Bruno says, we'd like to begin giving you a bit more insight as to what the combat team is currently working on, save for any new features or systems that we simply aren't ready to discuss yet. The plan is to make a new post similar to this each month. First of all, this is amazing. This is this type of open conversation is something that I really think they should continue. A lot of people were very frustrated with ESO a year ago. I remember King Richard. I remember Cypher. I remember the We Are ESO post where they're like, they're not telling us what's going on. All of a sudden they come out and they say this, this, and this. Having this open dialogue with players, not that you have to listen to what everybody's saying, because, sometimes people are just on there to troll or bitch or whatever. It's just having this dialogue so people know where you're coming from. So, as the players, we can understand and see these changes coming down the line. It's very helpful. So I really hope they keep this going. The plan is to make a new post similar to this each month. In order for this to work, though, everyone must understand that this is all work and development and has a high probability to change. As long as discussion stays civil, we'll continue posting these updates. Sweet. With that said, below are a few things, not everything, the combat team is currently working on for Update 17. Goal: improve synergies. Ensure that when players are prompted to use a synergy, they can always use it. Players should always know where a synergy is, working to improve visual effects to support this. Group mates shouldn't have to fight each other to use a synergy. When players use a synergy, it should fire immediately with no delay. Synergies are the way to help groups be stronger than solo players. Damage and resource sustain should always be better while in a group. Review and standardize balance for synergy abilities. Ultimate synergies should be stronger than regular abilities. Okay, so this is a really good change. I didn't really realize how big of a deal this was until last night. I just started diving into vet trials. We did a Sanctum Ophidia run last night, and we were on the second to last boss, and people are getting pinned down. And it's not a super hard boss, but we wiped a few times because we could not activate synergies to pick people up. And so there were two of us at one point. The tank was pinned to the ground, and we were trying to unpin him, and no synergy was coming up. And there's nothing we can do at that point, like we have to hope the synergy comes up, and then we have to activate it. And if you guys have done that trial before, activating the synergy isn't quick and easy. Sometimes you have to button mash the shit out of it in order to activate it. And so obviously that's more of an extreme case scenario, but as a tank, I've experienced that quite a bit, where I'm trying to activate synergies to buff the group and get myself resources back when it shards or whatever, and it's not always fluid. So I think this is a very good change. I think this would be vastly helpful in PvP. Maybe if they buff synergies on ultimates like Nova and Standard, they would be more useful in PvP, because activating those synergies is very valuable, but those are stationary ultimates, and so they don't do enough damage to really be useful. The activation of the synergy would have to be very valuable in order for that type of ultimate to make its way into PvP. And I'm only talking about Standard of Might, guys. I know shifting standard moves. I'm not talking about that one. I'm just talking about like Veil of Blades, Nova, Standard of Might, and then what are the other ones? Sorks have negate magic. Like those types of synergies that do damage mitigation and they do damage, and then you activate a synergy and they do more stuff. I could see those being valuable in PvP if the activated synergy did more burst damage or applied more damage over time. Those wouldn't be as completely useless as they currently are in PvP. I think this is more of a PvE change in general, but if they look at those sorts of things, I think this could easily go over to PvP. Goal: improve interrupt. Add a stun to interrupts. If a player gets interrupted, they get stunned, and therefore get CC immunity when they break it. That's a good change, because right now you can interrupt and then you can CC them, and so then they're kind of stuck in this animation. It's fun, but I like the ability to be able to CC break it. Add a short cooldown to an interrupted ability to add interesting gameplay to interrupts. Add a short cooldown. Okay, so they're talking about, if I'm reading this correctly, so for example, Dark Flare. If I try to Dark Flare you and you interrupt me, then I have a cooldown and I can't use Dark Flare right away anymore. I like that a lot, because, as you guys know, revives are a cast time. And so, I don't think I recorded it, but I had a 1-on-5 on my Magic and Nightblade a couple days ago, and I killed 2 people, And so then it was a 3-on-1, and it was on their resource. And so the ads were coming back. I was kind of pressured to really finish them off. Well, one person, it was then his job to revive nonstop. Like, I would bash him, he'd revive. And I'm on a Magic Ignite Blade. I only have so much stamina. I'm not running Crushing Shock, which obviously, you know, that's one of the benefits of Crushing Shock. Probably have to look at that next patch. But when I was bashing him, I had no problem bashing him and then fighting the other two people. But the problem came down when he realized that he couldn't revive. Another person decided to start reviving. And so they had two people nonstop reviving while the healer was healing them. And so I couldn't stop both revives and put pressure on the Templar healing to stop them from picking the other two up. And so I ended up losing this 5-on-2 because they just went into turtle revive each other mode. And so my long-winded point with this is, if you add a cooldown, these guys won't be able to instantly try and revive again. You know, these groups that are relying on having large amounts of people to survive and pick each other up when people go down, you know, now smaller groups can then interrupt those revives and force them to fight. They don't just go into revive mode. They'll at least have to wait a little bit before they try to revive again. I think that's a really good change. I like that adjustment. And, you know, yeah, there are some classes that do use channeled abilities. Interrupting Radiant, you know, this will delay people from Radiant spamming. I think that's a good change. You know, I think a lot of these changes stop a lot of the annoying XV1 situations where, you know, people are just outnumber you and they hit you with an undodgeable skill, and then literally, like, if you interrupt it, they just put it on you again, you know. And now if you add a cooldown, they'll at least have to do something else for a little bit. You'll probably still die, but now they just won't be able to continue to spam you with one button, which I think is very cool. Add Interrupt Telegraph to cast time abilities when players are not CC immune. All right, cool. Goal, investigate perma-blocking. Now, as you guys know, I posted a few videos. Perma-blocking still exists. This is something that they need to adjust. And when they adjust this, I think this is going to make great changes to this game. I think this is definitely something worth looking at. Adjust the block calculation so that cost reduction happens first. Might have to reduce the block cost slightly as a result. Okay. So how the calculation goes, Wooler has it. Wooler from Wooler Gaming, he's posted it. He's got a couple videos on it, if I remember correctly. He's a PvE tank, but he knows perma blocking very well. If I remember correctly, the calculation goes you have roughly 2,000 block cost, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. And then your CP tree then mitigates 25%. You can mitigate 25% of that through the CP, and then your sturdy percentage reduces. So, like, if you reduce it down, you know, let's say from 2,000 to 1,600. Which is 25%. So now your block cost is 1,600. Well, your sturdy can then reduce it another X%, but instead of taking it from the 2,000, it's now taking it from the 1,600. And so it wouldn't be another 400. It would be, you know, if it was another, how can I word this? You get diminishing returns with how it currently works, but the problem is the reduced block cost, the cost reduction glyphs happen at the end. And so instead of them happening in the beginning and then you have the reduced cost, you then have, which would, you know, increase the block cost by a decent amount. What you have is you get these reductions, and then you get this flat value reductions with your enchants and your jewelry, which then can make some very silly builds with how the game works. So just switching how that calculation works, like it says here, putting the enchants up top and then having the reductions afterwards would allow these types of builds to not exist anymore. I think that would be a very good change. Investigate adding something to champion passives or an item set to increase the block cost. So here's the problem with adding an item set to increase the block cost. Um, that would only be beneficial for groups of players trying to fight smaller groups of players, and they're already at an advantage. Like I'm not as a solo player, I'm not going to wear an item set to increase block cost. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to. I'm not going to diminish my ability to do damage and sustain by having a set that only works on like you know a certain percentage of builds. It's the same reason like I'm not running Spriggans and Spinners. Those are good sets, but they're specialized sets, and this would be a specialized set against a select amount of people. Now, if they came out with a poison, that increased the block cost, it. I know it has increased cost of abilities. I don't know if that applies to block cost or not. And I know people are very negative against poison, so maybe that's not a good choice. So forget about that one. Champion passives would be good. There are some room in the champion passives to make better passives, so increased block cost would potentially be a good idea. I think that would be a good change. Goal: improving off balance plus heavy attacks. Test the following changes with the end goal to have off balance be more useful for everyone. Effect is only consumed if the target is knocked down from a heavy attack. Attacking an off balance enemy with a heavy attack restores 2 times resources. After off balance ends, the target is immune for a period of time. Test making the following changes to make heavy attacks feel better. Shorten the heavy attack cooldown to approximately 300 milliseconds from 700. Okay? Shorten the global cast speed penalty of heavy attack to 50% from 75%. I like those changes. So they went with more of a sustain style in the game because people were sustaining too well. And, when you make those changes, it goes too far in one direction. And right now a lot of gameplay is kind of slow when you're trying to sustain with heavy attacks. And so you could speed up heavy attacks a little bit and make the game a little bit more fast-paced, a little bit more exciting. I think that would be a good change. Often as, I'm not saying make it too fast, but, you have to sustain with heavy attacks with a lot of builds in PvP right now, and the burst is often slow. And so when you're fighting a tanky person, timing that burst is very predictable. And timing, it's easy to see coming sometimes. And so if, let's say you're fighting a Sork, as an example. Let's say you're fighting a Sork currently in this meta before Clockwork City comes out. They hit you with a curse. It's like 3 to 4 seconds. I think it's 4 seconds. I could be wrong. The curse is going to explode. And you see them winding up a heavy attack, right? So you see the curse. You get hit with Mage's Wrath. You know that either a heavy attack or a frag is coming soon. So when you're fighting a Sork one-on-one, all you have to do is block. At that point in time, right before the curse goes off, you block, so you don't get knocked down and you don't get hit hard by the frag. If you have any kind of damage mitigation and you have a decent amount of health, it won't put you in execute, and it won't kill you. And you do the same thing when they drop a meteor on you. They hit you with curse and you see the meteor coming, you better hit block and hit vigor right away, and that will not kill you. You hit block, you hit vigor, you dodge roll out of the meteor drop, and you're fine. When you dodge roll, they're going to try and hit you with the frag. The dodge roll will block, will avoid the frag. And now that's just only a combo off the top of my head, but it's a very predictable combo. And so oftentimes, that's not the only people that have that. A lot of stand builds, they have to rely on heavy attacks to sustain. And so you'll see a heavy attack from a 2H coming in, and it's going to be like heavy attack ultimate, or heavy attack surprise attack fear ultimate. You could just kind of predict what's going to happen next. So when you see that heavy attack coming in, their next attack's going to do 10% more damage. Perhaps block the heavy attack because that it's also going to restore the resources, and if you block it, it won't. So speeding up that entire process would be very good, and it would make for a more fluid amount of gameplay. I think these are good changes. Obviously, they said you may notice we haven't listed any class balance changes in this list. This doesn't mean there won't be any adjustments. We're still just looking at what needs to be tweaked. So these are all very good changes. I think this is stuff both in the PvE and PvP section, and neither the PvE stuff impacts PvP or the other way around. I think that's I think these are really good adjustments, and I think these are things that they should look at. As far as balance goes, we're now 20 minutes into this video, so what I want to discuss, I'll probably have to save for another video because, as I said, we're already 20 minutes in. So these are good changes, and I'm not going to harp on them at all. Like I think this dialogue is good. I think this conversation and what they're wanting to do, these are all great. But with that being said, as multiple people in the community have talked about, the biggest issue with PvP is the lag and the zergs. And until those get adjusted, it really doesn't, it's not that it doesn't matter, because this does matter. This is all very important. This will make more fun gameplay for Battlegrounds and all of that. But, doing stuff to stop people from rolling around in 40, 50, 60-man super zergs is something that, needs to be looked at. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Like, if you guys think it's easy, please comment in the section below, and please say what the adjustment is, because I've tried to think about what you can do, and at the end of the day, it's just there's no one quick fix for this, and that's the biggest thing. And so they're already looking at it from the other side, where they're increasing server performance. They've reduced animations, which have helped. I feel like lag is a lot better now than it was a patch ago, but they still need to keep working on that. Reducing population is a good idea. Reducing the overall population into a campaign would be a great idea. But at the end of the day, instead of having a 60-man Zerg, you're going to have a 30. And that's more manageable, but it's still not addressing the problem. It's just stopping the problem from being a bigger issue. And so I think those changes are good. I think reducing the overall population in a server is a good adjustment, because then it allows like 10-man groups, 5 to 10-man groups, to be able to defend a keep against a larger amount of people. Because eventually you get to a point to where you're dropping oil and you're dropping negates and death royalties, and they just have so many heals because they outnumber you 5 to 1. There's literally nothing you can do, and it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating for people that don't want to run in a 20-man group. This game really does do very well in small group plays, solo, 2, 3, 4, 8, 8-man groups, where people all have their roles, and they synergize well. But 8-man groups have a hard time surviving, for example, in Vivek, because you're running across 20, 40, 60 people, and that is a huge pain in the ass, and it gets frustrating. And not everybody has the patience that like I do when I go in there, and I just don't mind when I get zerged over sometimes, because I'm just trying to find those 1 or 2 fights every hour that are fun, win or lose. So doing stuff to incorporate smaller scale gameplay would be good. Maybe providing incentives, maybe the towns provide more points, maybe providing incentive to your home keeps. I can't tell you how many times there are just AP farmers. It doesn't matter what side you're on, red, blue, yellow, they all AP farm, but a group of yellow will come up to blue, and they'll just camp in one of the home keeps, and they'll just defend that all day. They don't care if they lose scrolls, they don't care if they lose their keeps, because they are now resource farming. Maybe provide decentives, or decentives. I'm pretty sure that's not a word, so make fun of me if you want. Decentivize people, and I'm pretty sure that's not a word either. I can't remember the word. This is awful. But anyways, what you want to do is, in my opinion, is maybe you don't get defensive ticks at somebody else's keep if you don't own your home keeps. You have to own your home keeps in order to go up to Bruma and defend Bruma, or go up to Dragonclaw yellow, or go down to go over to Farragut as a blue. Those types of things. Maybe if provide more AP for keeping your home keeps. You know, right now you're getting 6K AP. Maybe reduce it to 3K or 4,500 per castle, but your home keeps, when you take them back, you get 9. You know, or something like that. Maybe just double it. So then all of a sudden, you know, you can take the 5-minute ride north, and you can go over, or east or west or whatever, and you can go take somebody else's keep and then defend it and get AP. But now you have incentive to get your stuff back, and then once you have your stuff back, then you get AP for defending another keep. You know, I'm not saying that's a perfect idea. I'm kind of speaking off the cuff here, but you know, doing things to prioritize playing the campaign would be very valuable in open world PvP. You know, because right now you have people trying to AP farm, and I don't get me wrong. Like, if I'm in an 8-man group, that's the best way to get small scale, is to go take somebody else's keep and try and defend there, because you know you're not going to deal with the entire faction that's just rolling around in a circle around the inner keeps. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that, you know, too often people I've been a few times in a Vivek where you load in and you're gated because, you know, blues are down fighting yellow and red's winning the campaign. Nobody cares about the campaign. You know, nobody cares about who's winning the campaign. They just want to get good fights. And so doing things to provide incentives for those people to make the campaign more fun, you know, provide something to the outer keeps, you know, provide something maybe, you know, provide campaign incentives to the cities. There's a few other cities that are there that, you know, aren't really used either. You know, allow small groups to be able to succeed more maybe in those environments. You know, I don't have like I said, I don't have the answers for this. It's just, you know, you have to start somewhere, and I think doing things to make people want to play the campaign again is the way to go. And, you know, providing rewards, you know, maybe don't provide as many rewards that you currently do, but like the top 10 people in the campaign that get AP for doing the objectives, they now all of a sudden have a chance at master's weapons. You know, like they used to back in the V14 days. You used to be able to get a potential drop for a master's weapon. You know, maybe create your own PvP weapons, because, you know, VMA weapons, some of them are PvP related, some of them are PvE related. Same with Asylum, same with Masters are a little outdated, but nobody's really using them for PvE, but nobody's really using them for PvP either. So maybe create your own set of PvP weapons, you know, that drop only in PvP when you finish in the leaderboard or whatever. And, you know, provide incentives to get those weapons by prioritizing campaign rewards. So then all of a sudden people see these weapons that they want to have, and then in order to get them, they have to go play the objectives. And so they want these new cool weapons, and these weapons that provide bonuses to their character, and then now that is more valuable than them going to defend you know, fucking Bleakers. You know, it just as an example. So, you know, faction defending Bleakers. These aren't all the changes that I'm, you know, looking or even thinking about myself. This is just stuff that's kind of coming off the top of my head. So I'm going to cut the video off here. If you guys have any questions, or if you guys have any comments on what I'm talking about, you know, if you guys have your own ideas, obviously I would love to, you know, continue this conversation, because this is interesting stuff. This is a fun game, and if they make these changes, this game is going to last for a long time. This is some of the most creative combat and character design I've seen in any game. And what keeps people coming back to this game is the fact that you can hop on and you can play so many different ways. And so I can hop on a Warden, and my playstyle is going to be completely different than if I hop on a Stamina Nightblade, than if I hop on a Magicka Sword. And if we can find that balance and, you know, find these smaller scale battles to where it's not just Destrolts and Negates and 60 people versus 5, you know, we can begin to create more competitive and fun gameplay, which then increases the longevity of this game and makes ZeniMax more money. You know, they want to make money, we want to have fun. there's a way to combine both of those things. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you guys don't like this video, please let me know. I will not do another one like this again if you don't want to hear it. So thank you for watching. Have a nice day.